Hi, I'm Redheaded Riding Hood, Red for short. I'm gonna read you William Barclay's daily celebration. This is on the Lord's Day, and I just think it's really interesting. So William Barclay was a theologian and a writer in Scotland. I think he was a pastor for some time. He talks about that. And then he was a professor at the University of Glasgow. Glasgow. Did I say that right? I don't know. And let me read this to you. September 8th, the Lord's Day. The use of the Lord's Day is still a living issue. I would like to do no more than state one or two facts from which discussion must start, and ask one or two questions which must be answered. First then, as to the fact, the Sabbath and the Lord's Day are different days. So the Sabbath is on Saturday, and the Lord's Day is Sunday. It was when Jesus resurrected from the dead. The Sabbath is Saturday, and the Lord's Day is Sunday. The Sabbath is the last day of the week, and the Lord's Day is the first day of the week. It is therefore clear that the Christian does not observe the Sabbath, and that terms such as Sabbath school are both wrong and misleading. The Sabbath and the Lord's Day commemorate different events. The Sabbath commemorates the rest of God after the 6 days of creation. The Lord's Day commemorates the rising of Jesus from the dead. The 2 days therefore have different objects. The object of the Sabbath is to perpetuate that rest, that cessation from work, which ended the work of creation. It will therefore be very properly a day when human work also stops. The object of the Lord's Day is to perpetuate the experience of the resurrection. The first reference to the Lord's Day is in Revelation 1:10. By the early 2nd century, at least in Asia Minor, the observance of the Lord's Day was universal in the Christian church, and Ignatius could speak of Christians as no longer sabbathizing, but keeping the Lord's Day. Now, for some questions. If the Sabbath and the Lord's Day are different days, is the fourth commandment binding on the Christian at all in its Old Testament form? Are we to assume that it is simply taken over and made to apply to the Lord's Day? If so, how much of it is binding? Does 6 days you shall labor, Exodus 20 verse 9, forbid a 5-day week just as much as the command to rest forbids work on the Sabbath? What is the relationship between the Christian and this commandment? A commandment which is written entirely in the light of the creation story and which naturally knows nothing of the resurrection story. In any event, I suppose I do accept the fourth commandment in junction to the cessation of all secular activity and the summons of the Lord's Day to think of the resurrection. How far am I justified in seeking to impose all this upon the whole community? Not at all. It is something which a Christian voluntarily accepts, if it is to be accepted, or is it something which a Christian, I think so, voluntarily accepts if it is to be accepted, or is it something which is accepted by the Christian but imposed upon the non-Christian? Usually people are off on Sunday, and there's a 5-day work week, and that leaves Saturday off for the Jewish people and Sunday off for the Christian people. It's interesting when you get into legalism, and I'm still going to do a video on my whole spiritual journey, and I think I probably will go back as far as high school when I was involved in this cult. and it was called the Worldwide Church of God. And they were very legalistic, and they followed the Old Testament laws in the Bible, not to eat shellfish and pork, and not to work on Saturday. And incidentally, there's different sects of Jewish people, and there are a lot of Jewish people in South Florida where I lived for 9 years. I lived there from 1979 to 1988. And I was a nanny for a Jewish family, but they were very reformed, or very not conservative, non-conservative. I'm not sure the exact term. I will look it up and then I'll put it below. But I think they even ate pork. But their daughters went to Hebrew school, and they would say the prayer Friday night and light the candles and stuff like that. But in this cult I was in too, the Worldwide Church of God, they were really strict about it, not working. And also, interestingly enough, recently, a person who's in a cult-like group and has a YouTube channel attacked me on my own page about keeping the Sabbath. And she was that legalistic, and it was very interesting. It was on one of my devotions, one of these devotions, and she felt free to come at me and say that no, it's not over, and it very much reminded me of that. Well, though it was even more so, because I don't think people not most people in that cult-like group I was in for a little while in my senior year of high school was like that, like attacking other people for not doing it. It was really, really wild. So people can get very legalistic. And it's interesting that there's part 2 tomorrow on the Lord's Day and the Sabbath. And I'm doing 2 today because I try to take off and rest on Sunday, which, for me, and it's just, and it's not a legalistic thing that I would impose on anybody else. The channel I follow, Glorious Life on Wheels, Carol, is a Christian, and she doesn't work on her YouTube on Sunday, and I thought, hey, that is a good idea, and I want to do that. Not just to copy her, but to copy her way of, worshiping God, really. It's something unto God. It's not like everything we do shouldn't be to do to show off or anything like that, but and that's only in your heart. You can't really tell why anybody does anything, but yeah, it's not something you impose on anybody else. But anyways, that's my view on it. And also, interestingly enough, this made me think of the conservative Jews in the South Florida area. My ex used to deliver flowers, and on Saturday they would not even sign their name. I guess they would put an X, or he would sign it for them or something. I don't know, but that was just wild. So certain sects, Judaism, even in Christianity, like I said, the cult that I got involved with in the 80s in 1984 was like that. So they can be very legalistic, which I don't even agree. I don't agree with that at all. But to each his own, right? Yeah. Well, I'm gonna get to Monday's video. This video will come out Sunday. I hope you're having a great Lord's Day. And Don't say that no one cares for you, because I do and God does too. Don't forget to pray for Red, because Red is praying for you. Bye.